While all over the world, extremely capable, self-confident women in business, research, politics, medicine, social work, art, and so on, show how valuable their contributions are for overcoming present and future super and meta crises. At the same time, many women still have to fight for equal rights and equality. However, projects with table money, for example, in the precariat and slums in Kenya, show time and again clearly that it is women who ultimately make the difference between systems of exploitation and thriving societies. It is women who can make the difference in terms of climate crisis and collapse of biodiversity. We are therefore particularly pleased to welcome you to conference number 5 of the Larnaca Conferences, Women in Tech and Global Transformation. And I am especially excited to create this keynote interview with Zhang Shuoyang, or Sunny Zhang, as her name is spoken in English. Sunny, you are an award-winning educator, entrepreneur, speaker, and thought leader with 20 years of experience in digital marketing, social networks, and international business. You are dedicated to linking academia with business through your position as a tenured professor at the University of St. Thomas Cameron School of Business, as well as your role as the founder and president of the Z-Lab Global Innovation Partners, empowering business and organizations through digital transformation and systematic integration of data analytics, strategic planning, and technical implementation for maximized return on investment. Sunny, I think first everybody would like to hear a little bit more of and from yourself, what you're working on exactly, and how this makes one of these differences that really makes a difference.
Well, Gita, thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's such a great honor to be here with you and with everybody today. Well, just to elaborate on what you introduced about myself, as you know, I wear multiple hats still, and which is also my mission to link academia with business, because I see the huge gap, and that's how we also named our company. So as a researcher, I've been focused on innovation, adoption, and essentially the intersection between tech innovation and people and business, specifically focusing on digital marketing and international business, which means I've always been keeping up with the latest happening around the world. And I think that's probably what our path, got crossed. And I really, really care about all the issues you just mentioned, especially women's role in global innovation. And I think it's very interesting because there's been research that finds women leaders, women CEOs, they care more about social good. So you're absolutely right. When it comes to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for example, we see a lot of corporate leaders stepping up to essentially link their business return, the financial return, with the social return. And in addition to that, you might be interested in finding, Gita, that even male CEOs with daughters care more about social work. So our impact can go different ways. Yeah. So speaking of multiple hats, I also feel like we need to work together across different segments in the society, different sectors. For example, my role at the business school of University of St. Thomas allows me to share my knowledge and expertise in marketing, management, entrepreneurship with the next generation of entrepreneurs, whether they're undergraduate students or MBA. But in the meanwhile, it also keeps me grounded and keep me close to the biggest challenges these business owners and talents are facing. So, like I mentioned, right, I see a huge gap between academia and industry in multiple ways. Not only in the sense that, higher education seems to be disconnected with, what the world is really needing. By the time the students graduate, they still don't have the kind of expertise that's needed to push forward for the employers to bring them on board. But on the other hand, without experience, they also essentially it's like a chicken egg kind of situation, right? But without the opportunity, they're not going to be able to gain experience. But in addition to that, speaking of technology, I also see a lot of advanced findings getting stuck in research labs and in publications, and they're not getting out there to the great marketplace and the large population you need to really realize the value of technological advances. So that's really the reason that motivated me to start Z-Lab with my partner, essentially to bridge the gap between the academia and the industry, to also accelerate technology advances so that they can be actually used by the population you need. And then a little bit more than the LAB part is the letter Z. Because it is the last letter of the alphabet, right? It really represents new ideas, startups, early stage, but also it represents the little ones, the underrepresented, the underestimated, the underserved, just like women, minority, immigrants, and essentially we care about sending humans to Mars, but we also want to bring lights to all the dark corners on Earth, because we're not going anywhere until we take care of our people and our planet and our prosperity, right? Yes. Essentially, Gita, I hope that gives you some sense of my personal mission and how my multiple hats are connected. But then speaking of what I'm working on most recently, essentially, through years of building startups for clients, we are now a venture studio, which means we are hands-on and building and investing in early stage impact-driven software startups addressing the SDG goals, and especially for underestimated and diverse founders. So I also work with nonprofit organizations such as Women in AI, which is a global community-driven initiative advocating diversity in AI. So we lead the Y Accelerate program, for example, one of the many startup development initiatives working with nonprofit. And the other one is Born Global, which is really, something that brought us together because we feel like we need to work together across borders and have the mentality, regardless of where we're born, where we're from, we're all in this together. And which is the reason, Gita, I really admire the work you're doing, and I'm here to support. So howdy from
Thank you so much.
Texas.
Howdy from Germany.
Yep.
Hello. I love what you are doing. You're reminding me of something I thought I always have an idea. Today we see many people interested in AI and coding, robotics, etc. But they often do not learn how to think systemically. And on the other way around, and it relates to what you have told us about academics and business, and especially corporate business. And it's the other way around, that many people interested in systemic thinking do not know how to code. And that is a problem, because we need both. Exactly. Yeah, as we need our left and right brain in order to get these things done. What I'm really interested in is some personal stories you might tell us about people you have worked with, especially women with fascinating success ideas. I often hear that many women, for example, in AI, are especially interested in social projects. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Gita. And that's also the reason this partnership with Women in AI is really trying to onboard and enable not just women, but essentially to bridge the gap between the technology and the real world problem, just like you said, right? Just having the expertise in data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence is not enough. We actually need to bridge the gap between the technology and the real world problems, which is the reason we're very problem driven. And as you mentioned, a lot of these are social problems. For example, there's gender issues, poverty issue, but education is a big one, and energy, environment, healthcare. These all stand out to be the major problems that we're focused on. So in other words, I felt like in the field of AI, which is also what we're trying to push towards, we need that pipeline all the way from the education part where brings the skills and technology, but then also need the problem solving part, which is really, through startup development process where you identify the problem, you come up with solution, and then you have the systematic way of identifying what is the best solution, and then start to design and validate, and not just like jump in, let's build a company, but really making sure it's working. And that's also one of the secret sauce of improving success rate, because you also know probably 90% of startup fail, 70% of venture-backed startup fail. So essentially, there's still a lot of issues in that space that we could address. I'll give you more examples in a minute, but I wanted to share my thoughts about what's lacking, especially when when women, for example, but also other underestimated founders coming from diverse background, because we often talk about, okay, how come only 2.3% of female-led startup get funding?
Yeah.
That's really unfortunate because they can't move forward without funding. There's a lot of issues. It's of course there's the systematic institutional bias, but then you also have to ask this question: how many of them actually get to the table before they essentially they ask, they get it, but are they going to be able to get there? So that's the reason we see a huge gap in the early stage, right? Yeah. Which I've been focused on. And I also believe that these innovators, especially underestimated innovators, but all of them actually need more than just financial capital, Gita. It's not just money. In fact, what we believe is what I call 4 capitals, including the intellectual capital, which is the know-how, because you don't know what you don't know, especially for technical founders like data scientists coming from the scientific background. They're the expert of their algorithm, their product, their technology. However, it takes way more to build a company, right? All the go-to-market strategy, IP issues, tons of traps along the way. So, essentially to invest in intellectual capital, so so that they can navigate in the dark and avoid all these pitfalls. But number 2, we also need the human capital, which is the team, the kind of team, because usually it's very a lonely journey and it's very hard to get it done or get it
Tell
right.
me about it.
Individual. Exactly, Gita, right? You lived through it. You need your tribe, you need your team to get it done. And then what we also emphasize is, again, from my research of social networks, is so-called social capital. And I think this is actually a big missing piece for a lot of tech background and underestimated innovator, because they weren't born with silver spoon, so to speak. They're not surrounded by investors, venture capitalists. I mean, essentially, for them to break, we already talked about the barrier in the ivory tower, but even outside in the industry, even well-connected people, a friend of mine who's working on her startup to address hiring and training in disability, essentially that's another, under served area. Basically, she was from Houston. She's very good at, making connections. She's still feeling like, how come it's so hard to get to the table? Essentially, if you can't even get there, what are the chances you're going to get funded? So that's the reason we talk about all the 4 capitals. In addition to financial, we also need the intellectual capitals, human capital, and social capital to really make it happen, especially for the most vulnerable stage, which is the the ideation. This is what we call the death, the valley of death in startup development. Before you gain traction. Again, there's another chicken egg problem, Gita. Essentially, when you have an idea, when you go pitching, investors usually ask for traction, right? But then, they want to see evidence. But then if they don't get the investment to build it, they're never going to be able to show the evidence. So again, they're stuck in that early stage. Yeah. And that's the reason we are using the venture studio model, which is to, build from 0 to 1. Yes. By not only investing in, in funds, but also in all the other capitals I mentioned, put in the expertise and the team and, sharing connections and resources. So, give everything it takes for the pre-seed, almost like soil, right? Yeah. It's almost like, what about we have this greenhouse? So startups would have the soil, but also the lighting, the fertilizer, the water, the sun, so that when they get stronger in nursery, when they're ready to get out, then they can go to tougher environment. But then early stage, I felt like that's something we really care about. And then speaking of social issues, education and energy and environment, well-being, essentially, these are all areas that we feel like are long-term oriented. You don't see the immediate return, but as a society, we really, really need to work together, especially in, emerging market, for example, and even in developed countries like United States, like in Germany, there are areas that is still left behind, right?
What I see in what you are doing and what I really do love is that you also deliver mental and emotional support with your work. For example, when women always, most women have the problem when they build a startup, they first have to learn to say what they want and to ask for what they need. They have to learn to respect their own self-competence. Yeah, and that is something not many women can do, or their own intellectual capacities in women are often suppressed, and it's a structural phenomenon not many are aware of even, and so they concentrate on social stuff, on empathy and therapy, etc., but they do not work on their intellectual capacities. And I see this is what you are doing too, that when the people, especially women, come to you, there they get their support, that they can learn to empower themselves for their own business or learning processes.
Yeah, Gita, I'm so glad you highlighted that. You're absolutely right. By working with women and other underestimated innovators, I also felt like, they're brilliant. And they're motivated. They are, they are gonna get out and change the world. However, the biggest block that keeps them from getting out there can actually be mental. Like essentially, I was telling a lot of them that, hey, we can't kill. We have to stop killing ourselves before others kill us. Because when you get out there, there are gonna be plenty of. Plenty of obstacles, but don't kill it already before you get out there. Because I really do feel like, there's a lot of mental blocks, and usually we hold our standard high because we are concerned about the judging of the society. But that has nothing to do with like how good you are actually. I felt like there's that, self-evaluation and the self-doubt. So you're absolutely right, Gita. I do hope maybe that has something to do with my psychology background. I do hope, we're going to be able to unblock these mental obstacles.
I think it's a yes, exactly. Of course, and it's a structural problem. Some years ago, I believed I suffer from impostor syndrome, always thinking I'm not good enough. Yeah, and the next moment someone will discover that I do not know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and then I thought about it, and it suddenly came to me: no, this is not imposter. This is cultural reflection. This is conditioning. Yeah,
That's
so
right. You're
it's
absolutely
not,
right.
it's not my problem. I'm brilliant. I'm good at what I'm doing, and that is something every woman can learn when she understands and can reflect that it is not her problem. Actually, I do not think it's a block in that way that they are actually suffering from some kind of psychological disorder or something. It's just something they learn, and that they can unlearn it. And when they come to you and there they see there's a community there, there's support, there are others working, and you can make the connections, they can see, okay, I'm not alone with this. Yeah, so actually it is not me.
You're right, Gita. And I felt like, someone used to ask, what is your superpower? I was like, I think my superpower is to turn the seemingly disadvantage into our strength.
Yeah.
Because, you might be doubting yourself, but
Wonderful.
Guess what? I can see through that and I can bring the best out of it.
Yeah.
And all these, seemingly like a disadvantage, like being a woman, guess what? We also have unique perspectives that we're able to discover problems that's been left out by the society, primarily designed by male dominated perspectives. In other words, I felt like these disadvantages are actually we should be proud because these are actually our unique contribution to the society. For example, when it comes to working with women and underestimated innovators, we believe it's really not about the diversity kind of, who's on the table. It's really more about our thought process, right? The diversity of thinking and not the diversity of how we look, our gender category, our ethnicity, racial category, our country of origin category. It's really how we think. And it's because of that, we're able to discover problems that hasn't been looked at. For example, we care about EdTech, the future of learning, because we're closest to our kids and we care about the future generation of talents and the ongoing, growth, because learning is not just about kids. It's actually all of us, right? The future of learning.
And you're brilliantly delivering one point after the other, why it is in the end women who will make the difference when it comes to a climate crisis and the collapse of biodiversity. Yeah, because there is caring, and we know how oppression is working, and that's an advantage.
We lived through it, right? Yeah, exactly. That's why we have deep insight of the problems themselves. But then, on the other hand, Gita, which makes it even better, why do we want to invest in them? Because they have higher return. It's actually, they are better performing leaders. If you look at the women-led startups, they actually have, much higher financial return because they are actually able to reach untapped market. Yeah. Previously, they are able to see possibilities, like opportunities in the marketplace, and because they're also good relationship builder, because nowadays it's all about relationship in business. They are really more successful. So that's the superpower of turning the I always put seemingly disadvantage, because it's not actual disadvantage. It's just like how, like you put it, right, how the society sees it. But guess what? That's our superpower. That's actually our unique contribution. We can turn it into our advantage and our strength.
What was the most amazing change you have ever seen in a woman you have supported with your work? The most amazing story you can tell us?
So one of our founders, Marlena, in the Women in AI cohort, for example, because we actually started by being very open, not like you have to have 10 paid customers or 100 paid, 1 paid customers. We're like, just join us as long as you care about, one of the SDG goals. As long as you're passionate, you can come in. Yeah. So essentially, sorry, Gita, I have to pause.
No problem. We make a break here.
Yeah, is it appropriate to mention name, or I should skip the name? Probably should skip the name.
You can call her M.
Yeah, right. Probably that would be better. I'm sorry. I just realized.
It's no problem.
Maybe I'll go back to.
You can start again.
Yeah. So one of our founders in Women in AI Y Accelerator program, when we got started, we were really open to anyone, not just like, hey, you should have already a business with a bunch of paid customers. No, we want anyone to join if they have a problem in mind out of the SDG goals. As long as they're passionate about solving the problem, because we actually start from scratch, identification and market research and then ideation. So essentially it's to help them build from zero. This example, I'm gonna use Emma for her name to illustrate, like, essentially it was a process to really narrow it down, because when you care about something, you see like problems everywhere, but you have to get started from somewhere, right? So I literally saw her working through that process by very dedicated market research, both externally about the population she wants to serve, but also internally about her own strength, and find the best fit. So toward the end of the program, she's not only a founder of her own startup, she also become a thought leader, because she was sharing her journey, which is so powerful because it makes everyone in the audience so relatable, so that they are super inspired. And she's also not only working on her own startup, but also inspiring more future founders, and she also joined another startup to help them because of all the learning she's doing. So essentially, this is one example I wanted to encourage everyone, that you can give back along the way. I've heard advice of, Sunny, you really have to be a unicorn and then come back to share because that'll put you in a good position, both financially but also status wise. I actually disagree. I felt like every step along the way you could be paying forward, because there are people right behind you, maybe one step or three steps behind, and they can benefit from learning of your journey even more than they benefit from learning, let's say, from Apple or the unicorn companies, because it's so relatable. It makes them see the hope. It makes them see, like, I can do this, because it's like a few steps ahead of me. So that's the reason, Gita, I felt like we just need to start judging ourselves and say, hey, I'm not somebody yet. I probably will just keep my head down. I want everybody to be shamelessly learning and sharing along the way. And I think that's
I love that. I love that, shamelessly learning. Exactly.
That's why I love your mission, Gita, here. And it's such an honor. I felt like there's a lot of synergy between us, and hopefully it will bring more people on board. I can global movement.
I can relate very much to what you are doing. Since my walk was alone and for many, many years, very, very exhausting. I've learned a lot. And when you come to the moment, and that's what you were talking about, when you come to reach the moment where you are acknowledged and your project is blooming, there's a gap between you and everybody else who's just about to start. So it is, in my opinion, very important to be a shameless learner and a shameless teacher as well.
That's right.
Teach every day.
Yes, and guess what? While you teach, you learn so much, which is why I still enjoy, because some of my students ask me, why are you still teaching? I was like, I really, really enjoy this. And it also, keeps me grounded and keeps me close to the problem. I'm seeing the students struggle, I'm not just talking about undergraduate, the kids, so to speak, but they're also business owners and entrepreneurs. A lot of them work in their family business. A lot of them work in big corporate, the MBA students. Essentially, it actually helps me understand their most pressing challenges and motivates me to find the most effective solution, which is the part that I continue to do at my company, Z-Lab Ventures, as a venture studio. So essentially, that's what I was trying to get at. We really need this whole loop from the education all the way to problem identification and problem solving, and not just leave the technology in labs and in publications, right?
Yeah, I love it. Here in Germany, we just cut our higher education of 1 year. So now every child has to learn what took 13 years. Now in 12 years, it's insane. Yeah, and what you are doing is so important. The problem is in most cases that the children do not learn how to apply what they know to their later life. And that is one of the many reasons. Another is we have totally outdated education systems.
You're absolutely right, Gita. But I can't change the entire higher education of the world, but at least I can change my class.
Yes.
I've been teaching for the past 17 years, other than the first semester when I was a fresh, instructor, literally learning while teaching. I've always taken my students to work with local businesses and nonprofits and identify their challenges and develop marketing plan, implement marketing plan. Essentially, I've always been doing this hands-on action learning, or say project-based learning, so they can take what they read, what they learn in the classroom outside. It's a way of them getting experience. It's also a way to give back to the community, because all of these, nonprofit startups, they can definitely benefit from some marketing help. And it's also, how I think the university itself can be, closely, what do you say? Because our motto at the University of St. Thomas is goodness, discipline, knowledge, and community. Wow. Although I often say, how come we do knowledge first, and when we have extra time, we could do goodness? We actually should put goodness first.
Yes.
And then when we have, in fact, that's what, Confucius has a saying that you actually need to be a good human being, respect your elders, be good for your friends. And when you have extra time and energy, then you do some scholarly work. But then it seems to be opposite in the modern society, that we're all so busy with our research and with our work that we almost run out of time to address the goodness part. So again, thank you for everything you do, Gita.
Oh, thank you so much. And the other way around, Sunny, listening to women over your lifetime, what is the one thing you would say you have learned on your journey concerning women and listening to women, especially? Does this make sense? I hope so. What is the one thing women have taught you?
Well, if anything, I think it's resilience. One of my motto is, I already shared another one, I think, in spirit, which is, if you understand what you're doing, you're not learning anything. So you should always be learning and sharing, right? So the other one is,
we are two peas in a pod. I have almost the same.
The other one is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Okay.
I felt like women are so resilient, both physically and mentally, because, society often put a lot of hardship on them. And, I have to say, it takes an awakening process for myself, because as an academic, I used to naively think I was just this intellect, which is not defined by, by how I look, but by how I think, right? Because, I was doing intellectual work, but then later on, you wake up to your reality when you actually become a mother and realize, okay, there's all these reality challenges you have to deal with. So for me, it takes a little awakening to realize, the women identity. And that's when I started connecting with other women who also, it's almost like, wow, you realize everybody is, going through the same process, but they haven't talked enough. They haven't shared this enough, right, Gita? Which is why I suppose you're asking this question, the importance of, sharing with each other and encouraging each other. and that's really where you see this collective intelligence and the social capital kind of network circle. We may be like each one of us, right? Can only do a little bit, but together we could really make the change we want to see. And that's the reason, in addition to my day job, my business investment part, I'm so actively engaged in the community part, whether it's women in AI or there's a lot of other community activities I'm engaged in, because I felt like it's so critical to find the tribe and essentially bring the tribe to those that have been looking for the support on various fronts. Because as you mentioned earlier, right, the societal structure on them can only be, I think you also mentioned, like, it's hard to be undone, right? You really need to almost like create your own little mini universe to surround you and almost like protect you, so that you have the immune system to counteract all the prejudice and
it's all about mass. It's about mass, bringing mass behind, not mass, mass behind your back. Yeah, you need others to support you, and that you have a community supporting you, but best way, non-ideological.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from your perspective, when you would be asked, okay, what would be the one advice you would like to give women to create a startup, to connect with others, aside that they can contact you? Yes, they can contact Z Lab and then look for the programs you have and participate and learn, etc. What would be the one advice you would give if this would be the last thing you would do on Earth?
I wanted to say to get out there. Just get out there, starting from show up, to stand up, to speak up, to rise up. I think women's got it. They're extremely talented and motivated. They just need to get themselves out there to let the world see what they could do. So, I hope that helps, Gita. I almost wanted to say, a practical action item I want everybody to take away is to get out there, but it seems a little abstract. Maybe use the word shamelessly asking. I actually start to encourage underestimated innovators to be more shameless, because even if you try your best, you're not even close to what standards. And asking is the other keyword. I felt like we're not blunt enough in terms of the kind of help we do. Everybody needs help. Everybody can benefit from helping. And what the other thing you didn't know is that a lot of people want to help you, but they wouldn't know if you don't ask. So that's my own, self-encouragement too. I wanted to share with everybody here with us.
Thank you so much, Sunny. This is fantastic. I think we gave the participants a lot to think about. And is there anything else you want to share with us? Otherwise, I would say this is a perfect ending.
Thank you, Gita. I felt like we're done, right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna have some closing? Yeah.
I think both of us, you can say goodbye, I can say goodbye, and then
and
our editor can cut it.
A moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. The two of us will talk a little bit further, but for now, I think we can say goodbye, and we will see each other again at the panel of this conference. I really look forward to it. Sunny, you are amazing. Your work is amazing, and I thank you for your time and life energy you put into a better world, especially a world where women can rise up, speak up, and be shamelessly learners, teachers, and askers.
Thank you, Gita. It's such an honor. I'd love to connect with everybody in the audience And let me know if I can help with anything, Gita. I admire everything you have been doing. And I will continue to support your work from Houston, Texas.
Okay, then. Goodbye for now. I will not